John 11:35 is the shortest verse in the Bible. When I was a kid, I was pretty much made to go to Sunday school every Sunday afternoon, wearing a little tweed suit, short trousers. And I was a working class boy from Southend, so this wasn't a normal set of clothing for me. And I got bullied on the way to church every Sunday, a group of boys. And when I got to Sunday school eventually, after having run the last half mile, often they would say to me, okay, your verse for the week. Because in those days, if you could remember a Bible verse, you got a gold star. And if you got enough gold stars, you were given a Bible. And often I didn't have time to remember a verse. So my standby was Jesus wept. So if nothing else worked, I had a verse. And for me, it became one of the most important verses in the Bible. Shortest, but somehow the deepest and most profound. Why? Well, it marked the step towards the cross, because I don't know how many times you've cried. I can almost count the number of times I've cried on the fingers of one hand. Death of parents, divorce, Southend being relegated from the Football League. But Jesus is recorded as having cried 3 times. And this was the second. The first was when he looked at the state of Jerusalem, and he couldn't believe the state it was in, and he cried. Second, Lazarus. He cried. Mary, Martha, and Lazarus, siblings, were 3 of his closest friends. So on one level, you could see Jesus crying because it was a friend who died. And yet there's a contradiction, because Jesus, as God, knew what he was going to do, knew that he could resolve the situation. So that's always been a point of interest for me. Why? Why did he cry? He knew what he was going to do. And the more I've looked into it, the more I realize there are 2 or 3 explanations. One is that he was empathetic. He saw everybody cry. And Jesus, as God, is also fully man. And man has been described as a man of constant sorrow. In other words, if you're human, you will be sad at various times of your life. It's guaranteed. And Jesus, as a fully mortal human being, cried because his friends were crying, and he shared in that grief. But I think there was something else as well. He knew that this was the start of the journey to the cross, because the Pharisees, Sadducees, and others who stood around and saw him do it said, who is this guy? We've got to deal with him, because if he can raise people from the dead, he's a serious threat. And that it led to the path to the cross. And I think Jesus knew that as well. And it wasn't something he was looking forward to. And the third time, of course, was in the Garden of Gethsemane, when the prospect of the cross was immediate. And I've got another theory, which I've not read anywhere, so you can shoot me down. But the times at which the Holy Spirit is closest to us in this life is usually when we're the most emotional, when we've had loss, deep concern. That's certainly been true for me. At those times, a few times, I've cried. And I think at that moment, Jesus, recognizing what he was going to have to do, was deeply touched by the Holy Spirit. And he not only was human, he was not only God, but he was inhabited by the Holy Spirit and was overwhelmed by that emotion and what he was going to have to do. So for me, Jesus wept is the shortest verse in the Bible, but it's also the deepest verse in the Bible. So I'll leave it with you. Thank you.